Emma waited 5 years for Daniel. 5 long years. Late-night phone calls, short video messages, lonely birthdays, and endless promises. "I'm doing this for our future." That's what Daniel always said from abroad. Meanwhile, Emma stayed home raising their 2 daughters alone, little Sophie and tiny Olivia. School mornings, doctor visits, bills, crying children at midnight. She handled everything alone while Daniel worked overseas. At first, Emma truly believed sacrifice would someday bring happiness. But slowly, Daniel changed. Calls became colder, messages shorter, excuses more frequent. And one day, without warning, Daniel suddenly announced he was finally returning home. Emma cried from happiness. The girls became excited too. "Daddy is coming back." They decorated the house together. Tiny balloons, homemade welcome sign, favorite dinner prepared carefully. Emma even wore the blue dress Daniel once said made her beautiful. But that evening, everything collapsed. A black luxury car stopped outside the house. Emma smiled nervously while opening the door, then froze completely. Daniel stepped out first. Expensive suit, new watch, different attitude. And beside him stood another woman, young, beautiful, holding Daniel's arm comfortably. The world suddenly became silent. Emma stared in disbelief. Meanwhile, little Sophie happily ran toward Daniel, smiling, "Daddy!" But Daniel barely hugged her distractedly because his attention remained on the woman beside him. Finally, Emma whispered shakily, "Who is she?" Long silence followed. Then coldly, Daniel answered, "This is Vanessa." Pause. "My wife." The sentence shattered the house completely. Emma physically stepped backward in shock because suddenly 5 years of sacrifice transformed into humiliation within seconds. The girls looked confused. Meanwhile, Vanessa quietly observed the family like an outsider watching an uncomfortable drama. Then Daniel spoke words Emma would remember forever. "You and the girls need to leave this house." Emma instantly felt her knees weaken because suddenly the man she spent years waiting for was throwing away his own family like strangers. That night, rain poured heavily across the city. Cold wind shook the windows, and inside the house, Emma stood frozen, holding Olivia tightly while Sophie cried beside her. Meanwhile, Daniel avoided looking directly into her eyes because deep down, even he understood something terrible. He was destroying his family with his own hands. Emma's voice trembled painfully now. "You're serious?" Daniel sighed impatiently. "I already made my decision." Cold answer. Heartless answer. As if 5 years of marriage suddenly meant nothing. Vanessa stood silently nearby awkwardly, not speaking, not stopping him either. Then suddenly, little Sophie softly asked, "Mommy, why is Daddy angry at us?" The question shattered Emma completely. Because children never understand betrayal, they only wonder why love suddenly disappears. Emma immediately hugged both daughters tightly, trying not to collapse emotionally in front of them. Meanwhile, Daniel walked toward the staircase coldly. "You can take your clothes tomorrow." Pause. "But tonight, I want peace." Peace. The word almost made Emma laugh from pain, because suddenly the man she once loved spoke about his family like unwanted guests. Without another word, Emma slowly grabbed 2 small jackets for the girls. Rain outside became stronger. Sophie quietly carried her teddy bear. Olivia cried sleepily against Emma's shoulder. And moments later, the front door closed behind them. 3 lives abandoned beneath heavy rain. Meanwhile, inside the warm house, Daniel remained standing silently near the window, watching them leave. For one brief second, Guilt touched his face, but Vanessa softly touched his arm, and he turned away from the window again. Outside, Emma walked through the storm without knowing where to go. No money, no family nearby, no home anymore. Only two frightened daughters depending entirely on her. At one point, little Sophie looked up crying softly. "Mommy, did Daddy stop loving us?" Emma immediately felt tears mix with rain across her face, because no mother ever wants to answer that question. Finally, through trembling breath, she whispered, "No, baby, your father forgot how precious you are." That night, they slept inside a tiny, cheap motel near the hospital where Emma worked as a nurse. One bed, broken heater, quiet crying hidden inside darkness. Meanwhile, while her daughters slept beside her, Emma stared silently at the ceiling, unable to understand how life collapsed so quickly. 5 years waiting faithfully, 5 years protecting his children alone, only to become unwanted the moment he returned richer. But deep down, Emma made one silent promise through tears that night. No matter how broken she felt, she would never allow her daughters to feel abandoned. Because sometimes mothers continue surviving even after their hearts are destroyed. The weeks after Daniel abandoned Emma felt endless. Every morning began before sunrise. Emma woke quietly inside the tiny motel room, trying not to wake Sophie and Olivia. Then rushed toward the hospital, wearing exhausted smiles she no longer truly felt. Meanwhile, her daughters slowly learned painful changes too quickly for children their age. No more large house, no more family dinners, no more father waiting at home. Only their tired mother trying desperately to keep life together alone. One cold November evening, after finishing a double shift at the hospital, Emma walked toward the bus station carrying groceries and medicine. Her entire body hurt from exhaustion, but honestly, emotional pain felt heavier than physical tiredness now. Rain poured heavily again that night, the streets nearly empty, cars rushing through water-covered roads carelessly. Then suddenly, Emma noticed something strange across the sidewalk nearby. A man collapsed beside the road, unmoving. People walked past him quickly, pretending not to notice. Some assumed he was drunk, others simply didn't care enough to stop. But Emma immediately rushed toward him without hesitation, because no matter how broken her own life became, her heart still refused abandoning suffering people. The man looked around 40, expensive coat, luxury watch, blood slowly running near his forehead, his breathing weak. Emma instantly checked his pulse professionally, very faint. Meanwhile, rain soaked both of them completely. Emma quickly called emergency services while trying to keep the unconscious stranger awake. "Sir, can you hear me?" No response, only weak breathing. Then suddenly, the man's hand weakly grabbed Emma's wrist, as if desperately trying not to disappear completely into darkness. Moments later, ambulance lights filled the street. Doctors rushed the man toward the hospital, and because Emma already worked there, she stayed beside the emergency team, helping stabilize him through the night. Hours passed. Surgery, blood transfusions, critical condition. Finally, around 3 a.m., the doctors managed saving him. Exhausted, Emma quietly sat outside intensive care, holding coffee with trembling hands. Meanwhile, inside the hospital room, the stranger slowly opened his eyes, confused, weak, alive. The first thing he noticed was Emma sleeping uncomfortably in the chair nearby after refusing to leave his side. Rain-soaked hair, tired face, hospital uniform wrinkled from endless hours awake. And strangely, for the first time in many years, the man felt something unfamiliar: peace. Later that morning, the doctors explained everything: severe concussion, dangerous blood loss, and one sentence repeated clearly: "The nurse saved your life." The man quietly looked toward Emma again, then softly asked, "What's her name?" "Emma." He repeated the name silently, almost carefully, as if suddenly it mattered deeply. Meanwhile, Emma woke up embarrassed, realizing she accidentally fell asleep near the patient's room, immediately standing up awkwardly. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to." But the man interrupted softly. "You stayed." Simple words, yet somehow full of emotion. Emma smiled politely. "That's my job." The man slowly shook his head. "No." Long pause. Most people walked past me. Silence filled the room softly, because deep down, both understood something painful about the world. Kindness becomes unforgettable when someone saves you during your darkest moment. Finally, the man extended his hand gently. "My name is Michael Carter." Emma froze slightly hearing it, because everyone in the city knew that name: Michael Carter. Millionaire businessman, owner of several hospitals and companies, successful, powerful, and completely unexpected inside Emma's exhausted, broken life. But strangely, Michael didn't look at Emma like rich men usually looked at struggling women. No pity, no arrogance, only genuine gratitude. Then, softly, through tired breath, he whispered the sentence changing Emma's life forever. "I think meeting you saved more than my life tonight." Outside the hospital window, rain slowly stopped for the first time in weeks, and somewhere inside that quiet hospital room, two lonely, broken people unknowingly stood at the beginning of a story neither expected life to give them. After the accident, Michael Carter could not stop thinking about Emma. At first, he told himself it was only gratitude. After all, she saved his life. But days passed, then weeks, and somehow the exhausted nurse with tired eyes remained inside his mind constantly. Meanwhile, Emma returned to normal survival again. Double hospital shifts, late-night motel bills, trying to hide stress from Sophie and Olivia. Because despite everything, life does not pause for broken hearts. One evening, after finishing work, Emma walked outside the hospital carrying old grocery bags again, completely exhausted, and suddenly froze. A black luxury car waited quietly near the entrance, then the window slowly lowered. Michael, healthy again, elegant gray coat, but smiling warmly this time. Emma immediately looked surprised. "You're out already?" Michael softly laughed. Apparently surviving near death makes doctors work faster. Tiny joke, but somehow Emma smiled for the first time in many weeks. And Michael instantly noticed something beautiful. Her smile completely changed her tired face. Then, carefully, almost nervously, he asked, "Can I drive you home?" Emma immediately hesitated because rich men and struggling women usually belonged in different worlds. Still, rain had already begun falling heavily again, and honestly, she was too tired to walk. So quietly, she agreed. During the drive, conversation felt surprisingly natural. No arrogance from Michael, no uncomfortable pity, only calm warmth. For the first time in years, Emma spoke to someone without pretending everything was fine. And somehow, Michael listened carefully to every word, not because she was beautiful, because her strength fascinated him deeply. Then, suddenly, the car stopped near the small motel. Michael's expression changed immediately. "You live here?" Emma awkwardly lowered her eyes, only then realizing how terrible the motel looked beside his luxury car. Small neon sign flickering weakly, broken stairs, cold gray walls. But before Emma could explain, two tiny girls suddenly rushed outside excitedly after spotting her. "Mommy!" Sophie hugged Emma immediately. Meanwhile, little Olivia stopped, seeing Michael nearby nervously. Tiny, shy eyes, messy hair, and suddenly something painful touched Michael's heart, because deep down he realized these little girls once had stability, a home, a father, and now they lived inside cheap motel rooms, watching their mother slowly destroy herself trying to survive. Sophie looked toward Michael curiously. "Who's he?" Emma hesitated awkwardly, but before she answered, Michael gently knelt down near the girls, smiling softly. "My name's Michael." Olivia quietly hid behind Emma. Meanwhile, Sophie boldly asked, "Are you rich?" Emma instantly became embarrassed, but unexpectedly, Michael laughed warmly. "Yes." Tiny pause. "But your mom is scarier than rich people." For the first time in months, Emma genuinely laughed out loud, and hearing that sound, Michael felt something inside his chest shift completely. That night, after returning home alone to his massive, empty mansion, Michael sat silently inside darkness, thinking about Emma and her daughters. Huge house, luxury furniture, perfect silence, and suddenly his expensive life felt painfully empty. Meanwhile, inside the tiny motel room, Sophie quietly whispered while falling asleep, "Mommy, I like Michael." Emma smiled weakly while brushing Olivia's hair gently, then softly answered, "He's just being kind." But deep down, even Emma already felt something dangerous beginning too. Not because Michael was rich, because after years of abandonment and humiliation, he made her feel seen again. Days later, Michael unexpectedly visited the hospital carrying flowers. Not expensive romantic roses, simple sunflowers. Emma looked surprised. Why sunflowers? Michael smiled softly. Because they survive storms and still face sunlight. The sentence completely silenced Emma emotionally, because somehow, for the first time since Daniel destroyed her life, someone finally noticed her pain without her needing to explain it. And slowly, without either fully realizing it yet, Michael stopped becoming the man Emma saved in the rain and started becoming the man healing the parts of her heart someone else abandoned. Weeks passed slowly. And without realizing it, Michael became part of Emma's life naturally. Not through grand gestures, not through expensive gifts, only through presence, the thing Emma secretly missed most after Daniel abandoned her. Every few days, Michael visited the hospital, bringing coffee for Emma during long shifts, sometimes sandwiches, sometimes only quiet conversation after exhausting nights. And strangely, those small moments began feeling more comforting than romance itself. Meanwhile, Sophie and Olivia became attached to Michael surprisingly fast. At first, Emma worried it might become dangerous emotionally, because children who experience abandonment often attach carefully to kindness, and she feared another heartbreak. But Michael never treated the girls like temporary responsibility. He listened to Sophie's endless stories seriously, helped Olivia stop fearing thunderstorms, even attended a small kindergarten performance when Emma got trapped inside emergency surgery overtime. And afterward, Olivia proudly showed Emma the tiny flower Michael bought her after the performance. He clapped louder than everybody. The little girl smiled brightly, and suddenly Emma felt tears fill her eyes unexpectedly, because Daniel rarely attended those events even before leaving. Meanwhile, Michael somehow remembered every important detail naturally. Favorite cartoon, favorite snacks, bedtime fears, tiny things real fathers notice. One snowy evening, Michael invited Emma and the girls to dinner at his house for the first time. Emma immediately hesitated nervously because his world still felt impossibly different from hers. Luxury cars, massive mansion, expensive suits. Meanwhile, she still counted grocery money carefully every week. But Sophie became excited instantly. "Please, Mommy." And eventually, Emma agreed. That night, the girls stared at Michael's mansion in complete shock. Huge windows glowing warmly, beautiful garden lights, grand staircase, and little Olivia whispered softly, "Does a king live here?" Michael laughed warmly hearing that, then quietly answered, "Not anymore." Because honestly, before Emma and the girls entered his life, the mansion only felt like expensive loneliness. Inside, Sophie and Olivia quickly filled the silent house with life, running through hallways, laughing, asking endless questions, touching everything curiously. Meanwhile, Michael watched them with something unfamiliar growing inside his chest: peace, real family warmth. At dinner, Emma noticed something strange. Michael barely touched his expensive food. Instead, he spent the entire evening listening to the girls laugh. And somehow, his expression looked happier than during any business interview she had ever seen online. Then suddenly, Olivia accidentally spilled juice across the tablecloth. The little girl instantly froze in fear, because Daniel used to become angry over tiny accidents. But Michael simply grabbed napkins calmly, smiling softly. "Well, I guess the table was thirsty too." The girls burst into laughter immediately, and Emma quietly looked away emotionally, because suddenly she realized something painful. Kindness inside a home changes children completely. Later that night, while driving back toward the motel, Sophie quietly whispered from the back seat, "I wish Michael was our dad." Silence instantly filled the car. Emma's hands tightened on the steering wheel emotionally. Meanwhile, little Olivia softly nodded sleepily. "He makes Mommy smile again." Those words shattered Emma internally, because deep down, she realized her daughters noticed every hidden sadness she tried protecting them from. That night, after putting the girls to sleep, Emma sat alone near the motel window, unable to stop thinking about Michael, about peace, about safety, and most terrifyingly, about hope returning after she believed love was finished forever. Meanwhile, inside his giant empty mansion, Michael stared at an old family photo frame he never previously cared about. His parents, childhood memories, warm smiles, and for the first time in many years, he admitted something quietly to himself. He no longer wanted success alone anymore. He wanted Emma and the two little girls who somehow turned his cold, silent house into something feeling like home for the first time in years. At first, Daniel believed he made the right decision. Vanessa was younger, beautiful, exciting, and after years of hard, exhausting work abroad, he convinced himself he deserved a better life. Meanwhile, Emma and the girls slowly disappeared from his thoughts. At least, that's what he tried believing, because deep down, certain memories refused leaving him completely. Little Olivia sleeping on his chest years ago, Sophie waiting beside the window for his calls, Emma crying quietly during airport goodbyes, pretending she was strong. But pride is dangerous, and pride kept Daniel blind. Meanwhile, life with Vanessa slowly changed after moving into the big house. At first, everything felt perfect. Luxury restaurants, vacations, expensive shopping, late-night parties. But slowly, Daniel noticed something strange. Vanessa never truly cared about home, never asked about his daughters, never mentioned family, only money, only status, only comfort. And the more Daniel tried building real connection, the colder she became emotionally. One evening, Daniel unexpectedly returned home early after business meetings got canceled. Rain covered the streets heavily outside, and strangely, the house felt unusually quiet. No television, no music, no Vanessa greeting him. Then suddenly, he heard laughter upstairs. Male laughter. Daniel's chest tightened instantly. Slowly, he walked toward the bedroom and froze completely. Inside the room, Vanessa stood beside another man, laughing comfortably, wearing Daniel's expensive shirt casually. The world instantly became silent because suddenly Daniel saw his own betrayal reflected back at him. Vanessa's face immediately changed seeing him. Shock, then annoyance, not guilt. The other man awkwardly grabbed his jacket quickly, but Daniel couldn't even move, because deep down, something devastating finally hit him completely. This was exactly how Emma felt the night he came home with Vanessa. Humiliation, disbelief, emotional destruction. Then suddenly, Vanessa coldly crossed her arms, and instead of apologizing, she whispered something shattering Daniel completely. "You really thought I loved you?" Silence crushed the room, because suddenly, Daniel realized something horrifying. He destroyed his first family for someone who never truly loved him at all. Only his money, only his lifestyle. Meanwhile, the other man quietly escaped downstairs awkwardly, leaving behind only emotional wreckage. Daniel looked toward Vanessa weakly. "What about us?" Vanessa laughed bitterly. "There was never an us." Then coldly added, "You abandoned your own children. What kind of man did you expect that made you?" Those words hit harder than betrayal itself, because deep down, Daniel already hated himself for that truth. Hours later, Vanessa packed expensive bags calmly, while Daniel sat alone downstairs, unable to breathe properly. And for the first time in years, his giant, beautiful house felt empty, painfully empty, because suddenly he understood something devastating. Emma filled homes with warmth. Vanessa only filled rooms. That night, Daniel wandered alone through the silent house, remembering everything he once took for granted. Tiny shoes near the stairs, children laughing, Emma singing softly while cooking, family movie nights. And suddenly, he realized something terrifying. He was happiest before becoming rich enough to ruin his own life. Meanwhile, across the city, Emma sat beside Michael, watching Sophie and Olivia fall asleep peacefully on the couch during movie night. Warm lights, soft laughter, safety, and without realizing it, the broken life Daniel abandoned slowly became beautiful again without him, while his own life collapsed inside the expensive loneliness he created himself. Near midnight, Daniel finally opened an old hidden photo album. Family pictures, beach trips, birthday cakes, Emma smiling beside him years earlier. And suddenly, for the first time since leaving his family, Daniel completely broke down crying alone, because now he finally understood the cruelest truth of all. The woman he abandoned was never the burden in his life. She was the only person who truly loved him before success poisoned his heart. Winter slowly disappeared from the city, and for the first time in many years, Emma no longer feared mornings. Life still wasn't perfect. She still worked exhausting hospital shifts, still carried emotional scars from Daniel's betrayal. But now, when she returned home after long days, someone waited for her, Michael. And somehow, that changed everything. Meanwhile, Sophie and Olivia completely adored him now, not because he was rich, because he listened, played with them, remembered tiny promises, the kind of things children quietly notice forever. One Saturday morning, Michael arrived carrying pancake ingredients dramatically like television chef. The girls immediately burst into laughter, especially after he accidentally burned the first batch completely. Smoke filled the kitchen. Olivia covered her nose, giggling loudly. Sophie shouted, "Mommy cooks better!" And Michael dramatically placed his hand on his chest, pretending heartbreak. Betrayed by children before breakfast. For the first time in years, Emma laughed without forcing it. Real laughter, warm laughter. And watching her smile, Michael quietly realized something terrifying. He was deeply in love. Not temporary attraction, not loneliness, real love. The kind making silent houses finally feel alive again. That evening, after the girls fell asleep during movie night, Michael and Emma quietly sat together near the apartment balcony, cold wind moving softly around them, city lights glowing below, long, peaceful silence between them. Then suddenly, Michael softly asked, "Do you know what I noticed the night we met?" Emma looked toward him curiously. "You looked more worried about a stranger dying than yourself surviving." Emma smiled weakly. "That's called being a nurse." Michael slowly shook his head. "No." Pause. "That's called having a beautiful heart after life gave you every reason to become cold." The words completely silenced Emma, emotionally, because after Daniel, she stopped believing anyone truly saw her anymore. Not as woman, not as human being, only tired mother trying to survive. Meanwhile, Michael looked nervous suddenly, something rare for powerful, successful men. Then slowly, he reached inside his coat pocket. Emma's breathing instantly changed, because somehow, deep down, she already knew. Michael carefully held a tiny velvet box, but instead of opening it immediately, he quietly whispered, "I know your heart was broken before, and honestly, I can't promise life will never hurt again." Emma's eyes instantly filled with tears, because suddenly, this didn't feel like rich man romance. It felt real. Then, softly, through nervous breath, Michael continued, "But I can promise one thing." Long pause. "I will never make your daughters feel unwanted." Emma immediately covered her mouth, crying, because deep down, that sentence healed something Daniel destroyed years earlier. Michael finally opened the small velvet box, a simple, elegant ring shining beneath city lights softly. Then quietly, with tears already inside his own eyes, he asked, "Emma, will you let me love all three of you for the rest of my life?" Silence filled the balcony. Beautiful silence. Meanwhile, inside the apartment nearby, little Olivia sleepily appeared, rubbing her eyes, then suddenly froze, seeing Michael kneeling, tiny, confused face. "What's happening?" Sophie woke up too, moments later, and before Emma could even answer, Michael smiled warmly toward the girls. "I'm asking your mommy if I can stay forever." The girls immediately became excited. "Yes, say yes!" Olivia even started crying emotionally without fully understanding why. Meanwhile, Emma completely broke down through tears, because after losing everything, after humiliation, after sleeping inside cheap motels abandoned with two little girls, life somehow placed unexpected love in front of her again. Not because she searched for rich man, because kindness found broken people when they least expected it. Finally, through uncontrollable tears, Emma softly whispered, "Yes." The girls instantly screamed happily, jumping onto Michael, and while holding Emma and her daughters together beneath warm apartment lights, Michael felt something he never found inside wealth or success: family, real family. Meanwhile, far across the city, Daniel sat alone inside darkness, staring at old family photographs, completely unaware that the woman he abandoned had just become someone else's greatest blessing. The news about Emma's engagement spread quickly. Friends talked, neighbors whispered. Hospital workers smiled proudly for her. The millionaire proposed to the nurse. A beautiful man accepted her daughters like his own. And eventually, The news reached Daniel, too. At first, he refused believing it. Emma? Happy again? Impossible. Because deep down, Daniel still imagined Emma frozen inside the pain he caused, still crying, still waiting somehow. But one evening, while driving through the city alone, he accidentally saw them together outside a small restaurant. Emma smiling softly, Michael carrying Olivia on his shoulders, Sophie laughing beside them, holding balloons. And suddenly, Daniel's chest tightened painfully, because for the first time since destroying his family, he saw something terrifying. They looked complete without him. Meanwhile, Michael gently fixed Emma's scarf because cold wind touched her face. Small, caring movement, natural movement. And watching it, Daniel finally understood the difference between himself and Michael. Daniel provided money, Michael provided peace. That realization destroyed him internally. For days afterward, Daniel couldn't sleep properly. Every room inside his large house felt unbearable now, because suddenly, silence no longer felt peaceful. It felt like punishment. Meanwhile, old memories tortured him constantly. Emma waiting faithfully for years, Sophie sleeping beside the phone before his calls, Olivia learning to walk while he watched through video screen, and worst of all, the rainy night he threw them away like strangers. One evening, Daniel finally broke completely. Without warning, he drove directly toward Emma's apartment, hands trembling on the steering wheel, heart pounding violently, because deep down, he already feared it was too late. When Emma opened the door, she froze seeing him standing there, older now, exhausted, eyes full of regret. And strangely, for the first time in years, she no longer felt fear around him, only distance. Long silence followed. Then Daniel suddenly whispered shakily, "I ruined everything." Emma quietly looked at him without speaking, because honestly, some truths no longer needed arguing. Daniel's eyes instantly filled with tears, real tears, not pride anymore, not ego, only broken regret. "I thought money and beauty would make me happier." Painful laugh escaped his throat. "But I destroyed the only people who actually loved me." Emma remained silent. Meanwhile, inside the apartment, little Sophie accidentally appeared near the hallway, then Olivia behind her. Both girls froze seeing Daniel. For one painful second, nobody moved, because once this man was their entire world. Now he looked like a stranger carrying sadness. Daniel slowly kneeled emotionally. "Sophie, Olivia," his voice completely broke. "I'm sorry." The girls looked uncertain, not hateful, just emotionally distant now, and somehow that hurt Daniel even more. Then, suddenly, Michael appeared quietly from the kitchen after hearing voices. The atmosphere instantly became tense. Two men standing face to face. One destroyed the family, the other rebuilt it. But surprisingly, Michael said nothing cruel, because truly good men don't need humiliation to prove strength. Meanwhile, Daniel looked toward Emma again, desperately, then through tears whispered, "Please, give me another chance." Emma's eyes instantly filled with emotion too, because despite everything, Daniel was still part of her life story, the father of her daughters, the man she once loved enough to wait 5 years for. Long silence followed. Then softly, Emma finally answered, "I forgave you a long time ago." Daniel's face instantly filled with desperate hope. But then Emma gently continued, "Forgiveness doesn't always returning." Silence crushed the room, because suddenly Daniel understood the painful truth completely. Some mistakes destroy doors forever. Emma looked toward Michael softly, then toward her daughters, and quietly whispered, I finally found peace. Tears rolled down Daniel's face uncontrollably now, because deep down, he realized something devastating. He didn't lose Emma the day she left the house. He lost her the night he chose another woman over the family already loving him. Then, suddenly, little Sophie stepped closer, holding Olivia's hand, and innocently said the sentence, completely breaking Daniel. "Michael is nicer to Mommy." Olivia quietly nodded too, and he stays. Those two words shattered Daniel emotionally, because children always remember who stayed beside them during pain. Finally, Daniel lowered his head, completely defeated, not angry anymore, only ashamed. Then quietly whispered, "I hope he loves you the way I should have." Emma softly nodded through tears. "He already does." Moments later, Daniel slowly walked away from the apartment alone, and while standing outside beneath cold night wind, he finally understood the cruelest lesson of his life. Sometimes people realize the value of family only after someone else begins loving them correctly. Spring sunlight slowly returned to the city, and for the first time in many years, Emma's home finally felt peaceful. Not expensive, not perfect, but warm, safe, alive. Meanwhile, Michael quietly adapted to family life naturally. School mornings, lunch boxes, helping with homework, braiding Olivia's hair terribly every Sunday while Sophie laughed at him. And somehow, the girls stopped looking at him like visitor long ago. Now, he simply felt permanent. One evening, during family dinner, Olivia accidentally dropped her spoon loudly, immediately freezing in fear afterward. Old habit from childhood, because Daniel used to become angry over tiny accidents. But Michael only smiled softly. Well, I guess the spoon wanted attention too. Both girls burst into laughter instantly, and quietly watching them from the kitchen, Emma suddenly realized something heartbreaking. Her daughters no longer looked afraid inside their own home. That night, while Michael tucked Olivia into bed gently, the little girl suddenly asked softly, "Will you still stay if Mommy gets old?" Michael froze emotionally, then smiled warmly, sitting beside her. "Of course." Olivia looked relieved instantly, because children abandoned once always fear love disappearing again. Meanwhile, Sophie quietly listened from the doorway nearby, then unexpectedly asked something even deeper. "Will you stay even if we're not really your daughters?" The room instantly became silent, because suddenly both girls revealed the hidden fear living inside them all along. Not whether Michael loved Emma, whether he truly accepted them too. Michael slowly looked toward both girls carefully, then softly whispered, "Being a father isn't only about blood." Long pause. "It's about who protects you, who stays beside you, and who loves you when life becomes difficult." Tears instantly filled Sophie's eyes, because deep down, those words described Michael perfectly. Then, quietly, almost trembling emotionally, Olivia whispered, "Can we call you Dad someday?" Michael immediately looked away briefly, trying not to cry, because for a man who once returned to empty, silent mansion every night, hearing those words felt overwhelming. Finally, through shaking breath, he answered softly, "You can call me anything that makes your hearts feel safe." The next morning, Emma drove the girls towards school quietly, and suddenly, Sophie looked out the window thoughtfully, then softly asked, "Mommy, do you think Daddy Daniel still loves us?" Emma's chest tightened painfully, because no matter what happened, Daniel was still their biological father, and children naturally search for love from parents even after disappointment. Emma carefully answered, "Yes." Long pause. But sometimes adults realize love too late. The girls became quiet afterward. Meanwhile, far across the city, Daniel sat alone inside his massive empty house, staring at old family videos again. Sophie's birthdays, Olivia learning to walk, Emma laughing beside him years earlier, and slowly, regret consumed him completely, because now another man lived the life Daniel once threw away carelessly. One Saturday afternoon, Michael attended Sophie's school sports event proudly, cheering loudly, holding homemade signs, embarrassing the girls intentionally until they laughed nonstop. And after Sophie won second place running race, she immediately ran toward Michael excitedly, without thinking, without hesitation, and in front of everyone, she shouted happily, "Dad, did you see me?" Time stopped completely for Michael, because for one beautiful, unexpected moment, the little girl chose him naturally. Not forced, not taught, chosen. Meanwhile, Emma, standing nearby, immediately covered her mouth crying emotionally, because suddenly she realized her daughters finally felt emotionally safe enough to trust fatherhood again. Michael hugged Sophie tightly, eyes already filled with tears. I saw everything. Olivia immediately ran over too, laughing loudly. "Our dad screams too much." The girls burst into laughter afterward, and while holding both little girls close beneath bright spring sunlight, Michael silently understood something life never taught him before. Real family is not always created by blood. Sometimes it is created by the people who choose to stay after others walk away. Summer arrived quietly. And with time, Emma's new life slowly became beautiful in ways she never imagined possible after that rainy night Daniel abandoned her. The apartment once filled with fear and uncertainty now carried laughter constantly. Morning pancakes burning because Michael still cooked terribly, Olivia falling asleep on his shoulder during movies, Sophie proudly introducing him everywhere. "This is my dad." And every single time she said it, Michael's eyes still became emotional, because deep down, he never expected life to give him family after years of lonely success. Meanwhile, Emma watched everything quietly, with full heart, not because life became perfect, but because peace finally replaced fear inside her daughter's eyes. One warm afternoon, Michael officially adopted Sophie and Olivia legally. The girls became excited for weeks beforehand. Tiny dresses, matching bracelets, family photos planned carefully. And during the courthouse signing, Olivia suddenly hugged Michael tightly, whispering, "Now nobody can take you away from us." The sentence instantly shattered every adult in the room emotionally, because children abandoned once never fully stop fearing loss. Michael immediately kissed her forehead gently. "No one is separating us again." Meanwhile, Emma silently cried beside them, because years earlier, she truly believed her daughters would grow up emotionally broken after Daniel destroyed their home. But now, they laughed freely again, trusted again, loved again, and somehow, life gave them a second chance through unexpected kindness. Meanwhile, Daniel's life became emptier with every passing month. The large house felt unbearable now. Every room reminded him of the family he threw away. Tiny memories tortured him constantly. Sophie's drawings once hanging on the refrigerator, Olivia running through hallways laughing, Emma singing softly while cooking dinner. And suddenly, wealth no longer felt impressive, only lonely. One evening, Daniel quietly attended Sophie's school concert secretly from the back row, not wanting attention, only wanting one chance to see his daughters again. And when Sophie walked onto the stage, his chest tightened painfully, because she looked older now, happier too. Then, suddenly, after the performance ended, Sophie excitedly ran directly toward Michael and Emma, smiling proudly. "Dad, did you record it?" Michael lifted her happily while Olivia hugged his arm tightly beside him. And watching from distance, Daniel finally understood the truth completely.
His daughters no longer looked for fatherly love from him anymore. They already found it somewhere else. Not through blood, through presence, through kindness, through staying. Tears rolled down Daniel's face silently inside the dark auditorium, because deep down he realized something devastating. Children eventually stop begging love from people who repeatedly leave them emotionally. Moments later, Emma unexpectedly noticed Daniel standing near the exit. Their eyes met briefly. No hatred anymore, only sadness. Then Daniel quietly walked closer. Older now, more tired. Regret visible across his face permanently. Finally, through trembling voice, he softly whispered, "They look happy." Emma nodded gently. "Yes." Long silence followed. Then Daniel painfully smiled toward Michael, holding the girls nearby. "He's a better father than I was." Immediately, Emma looked down emotionally, because hearing defeated honesty from someone once arrogant felt heartbreaking too. Then, softly, Daniel added, "I thought providing money made me important." Small, broken laugh escaped his throat. But they only wanted someone who stayed beside them. Emma's eyes filled with tears again, because deep down, that was the entire tragedy all along. Daniel slowly looked toward Sophie and Olivia one final time, then whispered shakily, "Tell them," long pause, "I really did love them." Emma quietly nodded, but both already understood something painful. Sometimes love alone is not enough when actions repeatedly break trust. Before leaving, Daniel suddenly stopped walking, then softly looked back toward Emma, eyes full of regret, and whispered the sentence haunting him forever. "I lost my family the day I stopped appreciating what I already had." Moments later, he disappeared quietly into the night alone. Meanwhile, inside the warm, bright auditorium, Michael helped Olivia fix her tiny shoes while Sophie excitedly explained every detail about the concert again. Emma watched them together silently, and for the first time in many years, she truly felt safe. Not because life avoided pain, but because after surviving heartbreak, they finally found people choosing to love them correctly. Sometimes people destroy the family already loving them while chasing temporary excitement. But real happiness is not built from beauty, money, or pride. It is built from loyalty, presence, kindness, and the people who stay beside you during difficult times. Because children may forget expensive gifts, but they never forget who truly became their safe place. And sometimes, the best families are not always the ones we are born into, but the ones built through love after surviving pain. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like and subscribe, because some stories are not only emotional, they remind us to value the people loving us before it becomes too late.